Hello. Hey, Mark. How are you
Hi,
doing?
how you doing? Yeah, good, good. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Right.
Welcome everyone to this marketing MEA that a lot of people have been waiting for a long time now. So I'm very happy to be able to do this with Mark today here. Maybe we can begin very fast, directly with an introduction about who is Mark, because we had a lot of people already know that we had someone before, and this is why that we've been waiting a long time for this MEA as well. But Mark, can you give a little bit more about your background? What have you been doing as well in the Web3 space, so people can learn a little bit more about you as well?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the introduction, Anthony. So a bit about me. Yeah, I've been working in marketing for around about 20 years now, I think. So I started my career in the FMCG industry, which is fast-moving consumer goods. And I started at a company called Reckitt Benckiser in the UK. And you probably haven't heard of them, but you'll probably have a bunch of their brands in your home. And they're a very fast-growing company when I joined, so it was a really good start to my career. And shortly after that, about 5 years or so there, I went to the Walt Disney Company. Did a couple of years there, didn't really enjoy it, if I'm honest. And moved back into FMCG, namely at Unilever. So I was there for almost a decade. Worked in the UK business, in European markets, and in North Asia as well. And then on return from kind of China and Japan, working in those markets, I came back to the global team, and I saw that the kind of world of startup had changed a hell of a lot, and also crypto was kind of taking off. And I was getting more and more into crypto and Web3 whilst down in China. So I actually co-founded a fintech, which started life as a Web3 startup, crypto startup called Crypto Crowd. Ironically, post ICO scam in 2017, we pivoted into Web2 and sort of traditional finance, and we wrapped that. We're in the process of moving on from that. So I recently joined the Streamr project about 4 weeks ago. So arguably it's a little premature for me to be doing an AMA. There's a limit to my knowledge, but we'll see how we get on. And like you said, there's a lot of people in the community that have been asking for this kind of a call. So here we are today.
Yeah, and thank you very much for this, but we will be very kind with you, so don't worry at all. But we have already indeed a lot of questions from the community. Of course, at the end of the live, we will try to take a couple questions as well in the comments directly. But first of all, maybe we can directly start with the first questions of the community. And the first one is, how's the Streamr sales pipeline looking?
Yeah, so I think this is a really important question. I don't really frame it in terms of sales pipeline, and that we're not a traditional business, but I think the point is, kind of the pipeline of partnerships and who Streamr can be working with. And, we'll talk more about core use cases for the Streamr protocol later on in this call, I'm sure. But the pipeline of partnerships is kind of crucial. And, we've got some really interesting use cases for Streamr already, and some interesting partners that we're working with. And again, we'll talk more about those later. But I think a key thing that we need to renew our focus on as a protocol is these kind of partnerships and the partnership pipeline. So I've been talking a lot about that in the last 4 weeks with the team, with the core team, and there's certainly renewed focus on that. And the way I view it is, and I've talked about this in Discord as well, the lower friction route for us, rather than going after Web2 companies that don't really get or understand crypto, has to be about partnering with Web3 companies, obviously. And Streamr's building a crucial and critical part of the Web3 infrastructure, and it has a really clear role to play. And what's really encouraging is that in the limited conversations that I've had, people are coming to us and they're saying, okay, I'm really interested in Streamr and what you guys do. I think the technology is fantastic. And there's a role for Streamr in our tech stack. So, I think the sort of combined effort of business development or developing the partnerships pipeline, whatever you want to call it, it's not going to be easy. It's going to take some time, but absolutely the opportunity is there, and it's fundamental to everything we're doing. So yeah, that's my kind of view on it. And just to summarize, I think we've got a renewed focus on it internally, and we're going to be pushing that pretty hard going forwards.
Exactly.
I think it's bags of opportunity as well as the other thing.
I fully agree. Yeah, that's exactly. Who are the streamers' main competitors at this moment as well?
Yeah, also a very relevant question. I think there was a comment in our Discord community recently that Henry once said that we don't have any competitors, and I think Henry's point there was that Stream is fairly unique in terms of its technology. It's pub sub, it's decentralized, and there are many benefits to it, which arguably a few other protocols can do all of those things at once. So I think that's what Henry was getting at there. Of course, there are a couple of specific competitors that are very close to Streamer. Anthony, we were talking about Parsit earlier in the week, and they're in a very similar space of kind of real-time data sharing. But this is why it's kind of it's super important that we really clarify the Streamer use case and proposition, because there are so many protocols which at first glance look like they're competitors to Streamer but aren't actually. For example, Storage and Filecoin, I've seen someone reference them as kind of competitors because they replace the need for centralized servers like AWS, and so does Streamer. But actually, the use case of the data is very, very different. Streamer is about real-time data sharing, whereas obviously Storage and Filecoin are about data storage, which is a very different use case of data. So, one of the things that we're working on and talking about internally is, okay, exactly what's the use case, exactly what's the proposition. That'll off the back of that, it'll become more apparent, who our real competitors are. At the moment, I'd say, Streamer is fairly unique, but I'd also say at this early stage of the Web3 industry and infrastructure growing, there's room for there's room for Streamer and a couple of others in a similar space. So I don't think we should be overly concerned at this stage.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also very important that I think up to today, I think a lot of devs, of course, understand Streamer very easily once that they have read the docs. But I think for the other people who don't have the technical background, don't really understand it very easily. So it's going to be also a part of the job, I guess, to be able to make sure that much more people will understand Streamer on the long run as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, this is coming across loud and clear in the community, is it's a very tech-heavy, dev-heavy community, which is, don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic thing. That's the backbone of the community, and it is, because it's a technologically advanced project, that's the way it should be. However, what's lacking from our community at the moment is kind of what I refer to as the retail mass. So the non-technical speculators, actually people like myself are very interested in this sort of crypto and Web3 space, but can add value to projects in terms of marketing efforts within the community. And the reason that the Streamer community is lacking a little bit in that area and hasn't really gathered that momentum is because it is so technical, it is so difficult to understand, and largely impenetrable in marketing terms. So we've got to clarify the message, clarify the proposition. That's kind of job to be done, number one, and then we can build it out from there.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thanks. What kind of marketing policy is decided, and what's the main target for marketing?
Okay, I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit with this one, just in that I've been in for kind of 3 to 4 weeks, so it takes time to build a kind of marketing strategy. But I think there's some clear start points. I mean, we've already talked about the need for a really much more sharp proposition, being much more sharp on the use case, and this all ties into building the partnerships pipeline. So I think that's job to be done, number one, and we've already started thinking and working about that. And big thanks to those in the marketing thread on Discord who are contributing to that conversation, because it really helps actually. I think an important point to land on that is, because there are so many kind of benefits to Streamer and so many different directions you can take it, we have to put a stake in the ground at some point and say, okay, this is what we're going to go after for the next 1 year, 2 years, whatever the time period is, okay? And the analogy I always give is, it's a bit like, getting a chisel and putting it into a piece of wood, and then you get the hammer and you just hammer it, the same message again and again and again, until the gap in the wood becomes bigger and bigger. At that point in time, at a certain point in time in the future, you can start talking further afield with other use cases and bringing more partners. But to kind of crack the cold start problem, you need to be very, very focused. And I think that, we need to try and find the data points and the data points to say, okay, this is the right road to go down, for the short and medium term. And I think those data points come from the conversations with the partners, or potential partners that we might be partnering with, because we need to secure those, and then we need to build those, and we need to build products with these partners, and that's really what's going to establish our kind of core proposition and use case going forwards. So that's the start point of everything, I think. And then I think the second thing, which is really, really important, is we need to leverage the power and strength of our community. So the community in Discord is fantastic. It's such a strong starting point. We're engaged, they really understand the product, they really understand where we're going, and it's fairly large. But we need to get that working harder. So in my last startup, it was very much community driven. So by the end of it, we had 75,000 community members in pretty much every country in the world, and they were really contributing to the business model. It was a price prediction, crowd wisdom type platform. But we also had the cold start problem when we started, and it took us a while to get going. But the process was, okay, we started with a kind of basic understanding and start point strategy. But I'm a big believer in kind of an agile marketing process. And the way that we got the community to grow with time was very much through a kind of agile working process and kind of test and learn. Anyone can write a marketing strategy, but ultimately in today's world of marketing, you need to follow the data points, find out, test and learn, a bunch of things, and most of them won't work and they'll contribute nothing. But one or two mechanics, tactics, strategies will start to show growth, organic growth, hopefully. And that process takes a lot of time. Now, the way we did in my previous startup, which I still believe is a really powerful way to do community-based marketing, which essentially is what Web3 is referral marketing. And certainly we're going to, Anthony, you and I have already started talking about this a lot with the rest of the team, and this is something that we want to build out. So if we can get that kind of acquisition channel working, we can start to drive awareness amongst the retail mass, and then you kind of get into this snowball effect of community growth, with more and more of the kind of retail mass coming into the community, and hopefully with time the dynamic within the community will change in certain channels. There'll be more kind of non-tech people in there having non-tech conversations, but about how to grow, general awareness of the protocol. So I think the community is kind of the second key pillar, in the strategy, which is kind of super important. And it's all about co-creation and working with the community to make Streamr bigger and drive awareness. And then I think there's a couple of other things as well. It's been noticed to me several times by community members, and I think this is right, is that we need to get Data Token listed on larger exchanges. We need to start the process for that, and we will. We haven't done a great deal on it today. Well, I haven't anyway, being fairly new in. But that represents a huge opportunity for obvious reasons. I probably don't need to talk about that. I think once all of those things are done, and we're building the foundations of a marketing strategy. And bear in mind that everything that I've just spoken about is going to take some time. Then I think next year, going into the launch of Tatum, we can start talking about investing money behind the brand and building awareness that way through paid channels. But I see that very much as we need to get the basics done first, and get the momentum going in organic terms, and then we can get into paid marketing further down the line. So that was a hell of a long answer for a short question.
for someone who's here for a couple of weeks, that's quite a good answer. Amazing. Thank you very much, Mark. It's very interesting. And also, I think, as you mentioned at the end about the markets, there's a lot of questions as well. When will Streamr start attacking, for example, the US market? And are we going to go on exchanges? For example, a lot of people talked about Coinbase. Of course, these kind of things are very attractive and something very important, I think as well for the projects. What are your thoughts a little bit about those kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's crucial. I haven't got a concrete answer right now about how we'll tackle the US market, but certainly, it's on our radars and we're thinking about that, and it's obviously really, really important. I think the bigger crypto exchanges, the Coinbases, etc. Yeah, we need a real concerted effort to get in there. It could be very expensive, but also I suspect they're going to be looking at certain milestones the projects hit, and I think it will be a tougher discussion than just commercials, but I might be wrong on that. But certainly, yeah, we're going to get into that in the coming months. So let's see how that plays out. And we'll keep the community in the loop as we make progress on that, obviously.
Sure. I also like to just to say it's always great to have indeed data token, for example, as well on Binance. So Binance is one of the biggest exchanges. So to find the data token there, it's quite good as well. I think it's something important because a lot of people are using as well those exchanges. But of course, getting listed on more exchanges is always more visibility as well. I think so on the long run could be something very useful.
Sure.
So someone is also asking here, what is the main focus at this moment? Is it more for the investors or is it more for the users and the technology? And also why?
Yeah, okay. So I kind of answered this one already in my view, in that, I think the principal focus right now has to be about, partnerships and defining the use case, getting the proposition super sharp. So that is kind of a short-term objective for right now. However, it's a meaty piece of work and it's going to take time to develop all of that. And we've got a lot to learn. I think I don't think we should rush into it. I think we need to, as I said, get the data points and get it right. So that's all on what I refer to as the kind of the demand side of Streamr, and then there's also kind of the supply side as well in terms of those running nodes and those that are perhaps speculating on token price. And it's also important because at the moment, I think the main nodes are like 3,800 nodes. Is that right, Anthony? Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, which is good, and we have a fully working decentralized network, which is fantastic. But you look at the likes of Helium, for example, which their tokenomic model is very different, so it allows them to do it. But they've gone off after a different strategy, which is okay, let's build the network and then deprioritize the kind of demand side. But that's right for them because it supports what they're doing. But that's been phenomenally successful in terms of driving awareness amongst the retail mass, as I keep referring to it. So we can't really ignore the supply side as well as we focus on the demand side. We need to do both. I think in a really interesting conversation, although I'm not really allowed to talk about token price speculation, but a really interesting conversation we've been having internally is about potential supply shocks. So if you think about the number of circulating data tokens, there's 1 billion in circulation at the moment. Now, if you, theoretically speaking, if you had 100,000 nodes around the one, the 10,000 data tokens on each, that would be the full supply of data tokens. Now, we're not going to get to 100,000 nodes. It's not the ambition, it's not the point, and it's not the way that it's designed. But you can imagine if we got to 10,000 nodes or 20,000 nodes, or dare I say even 30,000 nodes, you can have a lot of data tokens start to be getting locked up, and that has the potential to create supply shock, which, as we've seen with other projects, does have an impact on token price. So, there's a lot of interesting things on the supply side that we can play with going forwards, and we're starting to think about those and build plans around that as well. So I'm very proud to say that I'm actually running 2 of my first nodes out of Bristol, which is my hometown, on this very computer. So I'm officially part of the network. So yeah.
Exactly, you're part of the real decentralization.
Yeah, and I'm getting yield on my tokens, which is good.
Awesome, that's really nice. Cool. Okay, that's a very good point. I think it's the focus should be really on both as well. Someone is asking as well about the launch of the Tatum. So is there anything prepared for the marketing side as well for the launch of 1.0 of Tatum in Q1 2023?
Yeah, nothing formally prepared right now, but certainly it's in our pipeline of marketing campaigns, and we're going to give it a lot of focus. It represents a real milestone in the Streamr project, and we need to make sure that come Q1 23, we're in a place where we can shout loud and proud about it and in the right places. So going back to my point about agile marketing, kind of the role of the marketing team now between now and then is to test and learn, find out which communities Streamr really resonates in, which channels we should be activating, so that we get to Q1 23 and we're ready to go, and we're ready to put money behind it, and we're ready to, drive awareness of Tatum and everything that it means. And that's kind of a process. It's not the case in marketing, especially today, that you can take $1 million in marketing budget and just spend it like that. You need to go on a bit of a journey to understand how to optimize against it. But yeah, it's a big focus for us, and we'll be ready come early next year.
Yeah, we will be at that time. I'm pretty sure there will be other videos as well together where we can talk about the launch of Tatum. I think it's going to be a very important moment where not only for us, it's going to be very exciting. The team of Streamr has been working more than 5 years now today on this. So, of course, there will be something prepared, I guess, for the marketing.
Yeah, and the other key point with Tatum, and there's many features to Tatum, but the whole delegation of staking. Is that the right terminology, Anthony? Yeah,
delegation, yeah. Exactly.
I mean that, so just to explain what that is exactly for those on the call that aren't clear. At the moment, you have to run a node to stake your tokens, your data tokens. Now, up to a limit of 10,000. Now, if you're running a node where you don't have 10,000 data tokens, there's capacity in that node, meaning you can offer them out to other people in the community. And the implication of that is that it suddenly makes it much easier for non-technically savvy people to stake data tokens and support the decentralized network. And again, that's just going back to the supply side discussion, that plays a really important role, because it kind of democratizes Streamr to the non-techs. So yeah, there's lots of good stuff with Tatum, lots that we can talk about. So it's
exactly. I see a question here in the chat as well. So we're going to answer that question directly with the next question that I actually have from the community as well. It's based about the team, the marketing team. So there is a pretty small team focusing on marketing compared to other crypto projects. Why is this? Since there is a quite large budget available. So this is just what I've been reading, of course. Just about the budgets, just before that we go into the question, Henry talked actually about the budgets, very transparent in one of our last MEAs. So feel free as well to go there to understand exactly what are the budgets left today for the last year. They raised, I think, something around 30 million in 2017. So what is still left about that with that budget? But yeah, since there was a quite large budget available, why is it not used for future expand marketing campaigns?
Yeah. So this is a really fantastic question, and just to reflect, the marketing team setup at the moment within Streamr is relatively small versus other protocols, and certainly. It's my intention anyway to build the team out, and I've obviously got good experience in that. But to start to support Streamr with proper marketing budget at the right point in time, as I've touched on previously in this call, it takes a bit of time to really understand how to spend money against a project. But that's the journey that we're on, and I think we need to get there in 2023 at least. I'll be honest, I haven't explicitly had this conversation with Henry yet, so maybe I'm talking out of turn because he's kind of technically my boss. But that's the intention that's in my head. So I think it's fair to say, the marketing team is small, and we've been a little bit under-resourced, but we're going to resource it more going forwards. Just to comment on that as well, I think part of the reason for that is because Streamr has been very kind of product focused up until now, and that's kind of right. I mean, it's a fantastic product, as we all know, as the community knows, and that's why we're all here. So yeah, I mean, we've built it, and now we need to make everyone come to Streamr. So it's we've got a big marketing job to be done. So that's
exactly.
Just to answer your question, Anthony, about the monetary side of things, I'm not as close to this as Henry, obviously, but. I think we raised. Sorry, what was the number, Anthony? Was it 20?
I think 30 million or 27 million.
27 million. Okay, and I believe there's about 7 million of that left. So, there's a good chunk of budget there for marketing and building out the team potentially. But it's my job to justify that to the core team within Streamr and to the community. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out over the coming 6 months.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, there's a question here. Maybe it's not the best question because you've been here since a couple of weeks, but looking back at Streamr marketing efforts for the last years, have you learned something about it? And maybe do you have any thoughts about what is there something that, from your opinion, from your point of view, should change as well?
Yeah. So before I answer this, I just want to caveat it and say I don't want it to come across as I'm kind of knocking my predecessors. That's not my intention at all, because I think it's quite easy to come across in that way. So I'd start by saying that there's a hell of a lot of really good stuff that's been done. I think the quality of content that's been coming out around the technology and the potential use cases has been really first class. And I've spent quite a bit of time going back and reading and watching some of the previous content on YouTube and reading on the blogs, etc. So it's really high quality. I don't think it's contentious to say this, but I think there's been some confusion over the last years about the role of Streamr versus, say, the role of Data Union DAO and data unions. And I don't think that's a marketing issue. I think it's just the way that the community more broadly and kind of the core team have been thinking about the project. And it's understandable, really, because Web3 is very much in its nascent kind of stage, and we're exploring as an entire industry new business models. I mean, this is not the traditional way of doing business, and therefore everyone's kind of feeling their way in terms of what's the role of the protocol versus what's the role of the DApp that sits on top. And as an observation, I'd say the line's been blurred between kind of data union workstream and Streamr. In my mind, Streamr is very much kind of at the protocol layer, and everything else is using Streamr technology to facilitate what they're doing. And I think we need to get back to that and get more clear in terms of the role of Streamr protocol and our various partners that we're working with. So I think that's the big observation, really. But I think that's an easy thing to fix. But I think the second thing, obviously, is we need to drive more awareness of Streamr. It's such a good project. It's such a good technology. It's such a great community. But in the marketing funnel, for those of you who do work in marketing, awareness is at the top of the funnel, and it's the first thing you've got to get right. And everything else will fall from that. So that's what we'll be focusing on going forwards, I think, in the medium term.
This is why we are very happy to have Mark today on board at Streamr. It's going to be very important. Awesome. There's a question here. What if Streamr started using ad pop-ups on, for example, Twitter, CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, and other platforms where there's millions of people? Is that something that Streamr could do from your point of view?
Yes, definitely. It's a good question. But there are many paid advertising channels, of which paid ads on exchanges and other such crypto sites are one. Going back to my previous point, it's kind of a journey for us in that we need to understand what the ROI looks like on running ads on such platforms. Now, again, I'm very much a big believer in agile and test and learn. I think the right approach there is as we cement our strategy and we start to understand what we're trying to achieve in terms of messaging and marketing objectives. So I'm talking about specific marketing objectives with specific KPIs. Then we'll start to explore different paid channels, and this will come further down the line when we're ready. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, other projects do it, and so in theory, it's a proven acquisition channel. So yeah, in short.
Awesome, cool. So this is also something that Henry and Matthew also talked a lot about. It's the chat app. This is also something maybe quite new as well for you. But what are your thoughts on this chat app? So this is one of the only applications that Streamr did create internally as well. how do you see that we can maybe push this forward to make sure that people can maybe not only use a chat app, but make sure that also people understand that this is built on top of Streamr?
Yeah. So this is outside my area of expertise at this stage. Although I'm very familiar with the chat app project, I have used it. I think it's really good. And I think importantly, it comes across as kind of as very decentralized, if that makes sense. It's very much what it says it is, and that it's permissionless. You connect your MetaMask and off you go, and it's all done in a kind of a permissionless style. So yeah, I think it's potentially really, really interesting. It's got a number of features, including token gating. For those not familiar, token gating is there's a feature coming through whereby you can only access certain chats if you hold particular tokens or NFTs. And of course, in Web3 marketing and community building, that's a really interesting feature. There are similar kind of chat apps on the market, so we need to kind of work out where Streamr sits versus those, and ultimately we need to kind of work out a growth model, a distribution plan, and a supporting marketing model around that. What I would say is that, having not really thought about this a great deal up until this point in time, so let me caveat what I'm about to say. Great marketing starts and ends with building the core of what you're doing. And again, our challenge with Streamr is that there are so many dApps on top of the protocol. There are so many features to the protocol that sometimes we don't know which way to turn. We could be doing this, or this. Whereas actually, great marketing is about really focusing on the core and driving that again and again and again and again. We don't really know what our core is right now, to be honest, or we haven't agreed as a collective what that is and what we're going to go after. So that's what I'm trying to drive. And it might be the chat app ends up being part of that. Or less so, but yeah, I mean that's kind of where my thinking is on that at the moment. But yeah, it's a great product. If you haven't used it yet, go check it out. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's also going to be fun
somewhere, right? So
exactly, it's going to be fun to see also other projects or other companies maybe using it for something, or just maybe communities or stuff. It's going to be really fun, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Do you plan to launch a campaign for the best influencer on Twitter with a fat reward in data tokens?
Is that fat with a PH? I think it is.
I'll say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Let me talk around that a little bit in terms of kind of thinking on that. So rather than just one campaign for best influencer on Twitter, I think what we're going to end up doing is going down the road of building a referral marketing strategy whereby anybody in the community who wants to contribute to broader marketing efforts of community building can do so and be rewarded in return. So, for example, it might be about being the best influencer on Twitter, and there might be competition mechanic around that where you can earn points, and points will turn into prizes, whether they be tokens or NFTs or swag or something else. But it might also be about create a review video on YouTube, or it might be about set up 10 nodes if our particular objective at that point in time is to grow the nodes network, or the supply of nodes. So what we're talking about and what we're working on is how to build that mechanic so that we have kind of an semi-automated system that helps us grow the community in that way. Did that make sense, Anthony? Did I explain that clearly?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So just to summarize, I think rather than just one sort of insular execution of best influencer on Twitter, we want a broader approach which creates word of mouth in the community and it spreads out kind of semi-organically. If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. We have here in the comments as well, Pipan, who's also very active in the Streamr community, who says referrals is the way to go. So I think it made a lot of sense what you just said.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we have also here, it's quite of a good question from our point of view. What are the pros but also the cons for marketing for such a product today?
Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty cool question as well. So let's start with the pros, I guess. I think I mean, everyone says this on Twitter, we're still early. And some of us have been in Web3 for like 5+ years. So it doesn't feel like it. Like, we kind of are, right? I mean, Web3 doesn't really exist, especially in the mainstream yet. So I think what's really exciting is we're at the beginning of an explosive growth period for the next decade or more. And personally speaking, that's why I changed my career, because this is where I want to be. This is where we all want to be, and that's why we're all here. And I think that's really, really exciting. So I'd say that's a pro of marketing such a product, because the community excited, the people that are coming into Streamr are excited, as they are with other protocols and Web3 infrastructure. So yeah, that's a massive pro. Yeah, again, we've got to talk about the community, just the kind of passion levels there. And community marketing is just a really interesting way of doing marketing, and it is the backbone of everything in Web3. So for me, like I kind of see that as a massive pro, because the thing about brands is, in my experience, when you get people talking about your brand, product, business, protocol, whatever it is, that's when you're driving real brand equity. That's when it's when you're at the bus stop, or it's when you're in a conversation having a coffee with a friend, and someone says, "Do you know such and such? Or have you heard of such and such? They do this." That's when you're really winning. It's not about spending millions of pounds on paid ads if everyone still hates you. So that's why it's really exciting doing this kind of marketing in this kind of industries, because you're getting real brand advocates or real product advocates, and I see that as a massive pro. I think the last point is all things said and done, it's an extremely collaborative industry. I mean, yes, there are a ton of problems with it. There's the scammers and everything else, and the volatility in the markets and retail investors losing money, but it's a very collaborative and open industry in the way that core teams work with the community directly and want the community to be part of that broader team. And it's so easy for me to go and approach a competitor, in inverted commas, or another Web3 protocol in the same kind of vertical, and say, hey, do you want to have a chat? Do you want to explore this opportunity? And in the short time I've been a streamer, I've experienced that a number of times already, and the doors are always open. So they're the pros of kind of doing this in this industry, with this kind of a unique product. Cons, obviously, it's extremely complicated to explain to outside of hardcore blockchain devs and technical people. It can get quite complicated quite quickly. As we touched on before, there are so many things that Streamr's doing, so many features and so many USPs, as it was referred to in the community, that you can't see the wood for the trees. Sorry, it's an English expression. So we've got a lot of thinking around that to be done, and we've got to simplify it and get crystal clear on the message. We have to do that, and honestly, I think when we do that, some people aren't going to like the direction we're going in, but that's okay. We have to go down the road and try it, and if it doesn't work, we'll go down a different road, but we've got to put a stake in the ground. So super complicated to explain. The distractions, not knowing where to focus. I think the other point is, when you talk about direct-to-consumer marketing, D2C, it's very different in terms of your marketing objectives versus, say, traditional business. Traditional business is kind of acquisition, it's retention, and it's the cost of doing those two things versus your margin. Whereas Web3, it's much more vague than that. We've talked internally within the marketing team about the need for going after one true metric. And in performance marketing, what marketers really want is to understand, what is the marketing objective? Like what's the one thing we're going after? And underneath that one true metric, there might be a number of other kind of sub-targets which support that one true metric, but we haven't really got to that level of thinking yet. So that's a challenge, and it's not unsurmountable. We can certainly do it, and we will be doing it. But we need to get to that level of clarity, really. But it's harder in Web3 than Web2, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You also directly actually answered the next question. Was actually a question about how will we use kind of these methods from the traditional world, from Web2 for the marketing, or are you just going to go with the kind of Web3 marketing methods?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it comes in stages, and I think to start with. Obviously needs to be rooted in kind of Web3, marketing traditions, which is about community first, and then it's about building awareness through PR, and then you're getting to paid ads and what have you later. I think another thing to comment on there is, if I'm understanding the question correctly, is kind of traditional versus Web3. There's a lot of discussion in terms of use cases internally within the community about, okay, should we be partnering with Web3 infrastructure, protocols, or Web3 apps, or should we try and cross the chasm and build a bridge into a traditional world? And I think I don't want to speak for everyone in the kind of team or the community, but in my and I'll caveat this again, it's 4 weeks in, but in my limited experience, it's quite clear that as soon as you go out of crypto world and start talking about Streamr, you just lose people. It's extremely difficult to communicate what Streamr is, the benefits of it, why people should use it to anyone outside of crypto. And I think sometimes within the crypto industry, we're at a risk of understanding or forgetting how much we've learned on this journey, how much we know, and how into it we are, versus say, you're going to speak to any of your friends and family who are outside of crypto and try and explain to them what Streamr does. You'll lose them in a couple of minutes. And and at conferences as well, we've seen the same thing. You go and present at a conference that's outside of crypto. For example, we were at an IoT conference recently, and there was an automotive conference a couple of weeks before that, which was about geolocation data, and I wasn't there, but Matthew Fontana was. And Matthew said, it was quite difficult to communicate to that audience. So I don't know if I've gone off the question a little bit, but in terms of traditional versus kind of sensational or Web3, my view is that we need to focus on the Web3 industry for that reason.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So for the budgets, there's of course again a question. Maybe this is something that we can answer next time as well with Henry as well. I think it's not really very clear about how much the budgets are today. I think there's first a plan to be should be first ready to be able to understand exactly everything.
Yeah, we need to have a discussion.
Yeah, okay.
Specifically, which we just haven't got to yet. So.
Exactly.
So we'll come back to the community on that one for sure.
For the next video, we can maybe then answer this question. Awesome. So this is a last question, but also a kind of a proposition directly. It's quite fun, to be honest. So I think node runners may support marketing efforts actively. For this, I have a proposition to make a runners fund, which I will have a percentage of node runners' monthly income for some period. So, and use this for the marketing efforts. Can this be done or not?
So first of all, I think it can be done. And I think it's a great idea. And it's very much in line with the way that I'm kind of thinking about it is, look, we need to incentivize our community to get out and shout about Streamr and everything we're doing. So let me build on that kind of line of thinking a little bit. I prefer that, again, rather than one kind of tactical campaign, that it was part of a broader referral marketing kind of approach, which will take a little bit of time to get to, but that's kind of what's in my head. Of which this could be one kind of call to action within that broader system. And again, just to reiterate, it's spot on this thinking, because it's about driving brand awareness and advocacy from the people that are really passionate about Streamr. Who's more passionate about Streamr than people that are running nodes? No one. But let me just go on the other side of the coin. I think the limitation with that idea, without getting too granular, is that the people that are running nodes typically are developers and not marketeers that have large social presence. Now, that is a massive generalization, granted. But what we need to do, Anthony, we've had this conversation with Tom, who's also in the marketing team. We need to start to get closer to the community, understand who's who, understand who are the potential brand advocates within the community who have a larger social presence that can help us get the message out there. And we need to bring more of those types of people into the community as well. So, I think I've kind of touched on this already, but that's just kind of the way I'm thinking in terms of, it's about user get user. It's about community get more community members. So that's how we have to activate it. But yes, it's a really cool idea. So yeah,
100% agree. Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. There was also just in the beginning of the live, there was Damien who asked about these IoT sensors like a weather station. But
Oh yeah,
actually, there was it's quite an old video, but Henry did one where it's called Ruby. Ruby was this kind of a small thing that you can just put in rooms, and you
yeah,
can just then you will get data about the weather, about the temperature, about if it's hot, if it's cold. You can also sensor, for example, you can put this on a machine coffee, for example. He did it; it's just amazing. And when someone makes a coffee, you will see some vibrations, and you will directly know if someone is making coffee or not. And I think there's the possibilities for use cases with Streamer is just it's so huge. Actually, there's a
yeah,
lot of use cases and a lot of projects to build on top of Streamer, and these are just examples, of course. And I think today, of course, with the weather, it's been very hot, so maybe there's a lot of people thinking about a lot of different things as well. And indeed, there's real-time data that we can use, for example, with this weather, with the weather
yeah,
all around the world.
yeah.
But of course, Streamer is not building the use cases. Streamer is building the infrastructure. It's quite different.
Right. So just to comment on that, as we develop this proposition, we really understand what our core is and how we talk about it. I think it's important that we don't alienate other kind of periphery use cases, and we foster them and encourage them, because over time they may turn into something, right? And the whole approach with growth is follow the data. So if this kind of a use case turns into something that, let's say, goes viral, because a lot of kind of Web3 advocates are kind of younger in demographic, extremely conscious about global warming, global temperatures, and the environment. This is the kind of thing that could be, these use cases kind of grow in a surprising manner sometimes. So I think it's a pretty cool discussion point, this. So I think it's actually referred to as citizen science. And so the definition of that is where individuals outside of a kind of corporate structure, let's say, but part of a community, and there's a movement, and they're collecting their own data for the broader good of the planet and society at large. So it's interesting you came up with that question, because on my desk here is actually, I've got I'll open it up. I went to the IoT conference a couple of weeks ago in Paris, and we met with the RAC wireless guys. So if you don't know RAC, they do miners for helium. I've actually got a helium miner behind me.
Awesome, cool.
So that's not RAC, that's actually Nebra, who are also at the conference. So I've been running that for about a year and a half now, and obviously I own the HMT tokens, which are helium tokens. But you can connect up. This is a sample of a rack kit for citizen science type sensors at home. I haven't connected this yet, so I don't actually know what this sensor does, whether it's measuring temperature or air quality or humidity or whatever it is. But I'll get around to setting that up. But it's quite interesting, because there's this whole kind of like kind of hacker kind of approach to creating more data, and there's this thing about earning money from data, which is kind of a well-trodden path and has been discussed a lot. But I think the other insight is that people are starting to think as collectives about, okay, like, if I collect this data, how is this useful for the world? And I think that's really, really cool. And like that is a really positive externality of the whole Web3 movement. Really exciting. So yeah, if there's anyone out there who's just technically savvy enough to help me connect this sensor to my helium miner, please.
I'm pretty sure there were some people outside in the community. Yeah, we haven't. But that was the right moment to ask it. But it's very interesting. There's so many different things, I think, and also to discuss, and we can learn so much by doing this. This is the fun part. It's maybe not very fun when we don't have the technical background, but when you learn stuff and when you can finally run your first node, it's much more exciting than you can even believe. So that's really the goal, I think, here as well in the long run, with a lot of different products and a lot of different things, IoT as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Just to comment on IoT as well. I mean, we went to this conference, and Helium were getting a massive presence of this IoT LoRaWAN conference. If you don't know what LoRaWAN is, it's the protocol that drives low-powered, low-frequency radio waves, and that's the miners' kind worked with LoRaWAN protocol on Helium. And it was the biggest buzz and talk at the conference was all about Helium, which is this IoT crypto project, obviously. So it's just really interesting to be in a similar sort of space, and just as common as well. We met and spoke with a couple of the Helium guys, and it just reflects on my earlier comments. They're very open to kind of partnerships with Streamr. They get what Streamr is. And I think what's quite interesting as well as a general observation is that those people that are working for these types of projects, they're very open to the whole premise of decentralization. It's well documented that a lot of decentralized projects are working with the likes of AWS, and so nothing is fully decentralized at the moment, or very few things. But those people that are building the Web3 infrastructure, they want to work with other Web3 protocols, absolutely. And you can go and listen to the comments of people like LivePeer CEOs, huge advocate of decentralization, as is everyone at Streamr, as is everyone in the movement. So we should all be working together to build this. Which is what's happening. Is it is very open and collaborative in that manner. So it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Pipan is, I think LoRaWAN is a combination with Streamr would be pretty cool. There's a huge amount of use cases there, indeed. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, totally agree.
Anthony, can I just ask one thing before we wrap up?
Sure.
Yeah, so we've actually prepared a short questionnaire for the community to find out about marketing skills and social media presence and that sort of thing. It takes about, I'd say, just under 10 minutes to complete. Super simple questions, click some buttons and you're done. I know quite a few questionnaires have gone out in the last year, so apologies for another type form, but it would really, really help, as we kind of start to work more closely with our community and our marketing efforts. So yeah, we'll be sending that out either later today or tomorrow. Big ask from ourselves, if you could complete that, would be great. Yeah,
that would be really awesome. I think it's going to be published today on Discord and maybe as well Telegram announcement, but that's maybe going to be tomorrow. We're going to push out as well a tweet, but it's a huge help, of course. Gives a lot of information for us, and yeah, that's a very good point. Thanks, Mark, for that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, great. Then, Mark, first of all, thank you very much for this first MEA. It was really fun, and thank you to answer all the questions. Pretty good for a couple of weeks at Streamr, because we know that it's a very technical project, and it's really not easy sometimes to be able to answer all the questions. These were a lot of questions as well asked since a couple of months ago, so I hope the community is happy to get the answers from Mark here. Feel free as well to communicate directly on Discord, to join us there as well. If you have any questions related to the marketing or other stuff, how to run a node in these kind of things, feel free to jump into the Discord, ask it, and we will be very happy to be able to help you out. And yeah, we will for sure try to do a next MEA marketing, maybe not for the next week, but of course maybe in the next months. And yeah, Mark, again, thank you very much for your time. And I wish you a lot of luck for the next days.
Right. Thanks, Anthony. And thanks to everyone in the community. And yeah, looking forward to working with you more and more.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.